modern Egyptian culture to the traditional beach holiday experience.
What was once the site of two sacred indigenous caves filled with Aboriginal artefacts dating back more than 40,000 years is now no more. Those caves sat under millions of dollars worth of iron ore in a country where mining is the cornerstone of the economy. And that is why, in May, they were blown up with dynamite, irreplaceable parts of our collective history, the history of all of humankind blown up to help a company make more money. Let me explain further. The blasts allowed Rio Tinto, one of the world's largest mining companies, to access nearly $100 million worth of high-grade iron ore. But the decision to knowingly blow up sites that are considered sacred has damaged the company's reputation. In fact, more than that, it is a reprehensible thing to do. The CEO and two other senior executives have now stepped down, and the Australian Parliament is holding an inquiry. But my next guest, head of the National Native Title Council in Australia, is not satisfied with that response.
We don't think it is enough. We're also calling for a systemic and forensic review of their systems and processes and policies, and it needs to be Aboriginal-led. I've been talking to a lot of mining companies of recent time, and everyone that I talk to is non-Aboriginal and they're doing, Aboriginal business. So it needs to be Aboriginal-led, and we need change.
Jamie Lowe is joining us now from Melbourne, Australia. It's good to have you on the show. We just heard you saying there that the CEO of Rio Tinto stepping down is just not good enough. Just explain in basic terms what else it is that you want to see happen.
Well, it's critical we see law reform within Australia. The laws within Australia allow for sites of such significance to be blown up at this stage. So we need state reform. We also need national reform. And we need mining companies to value Indigenous heritage in this country. That's as simple as it gets. And the only way we can do that is if Aboriginal people are front and centre in making decisions.
I know that there is a push for an Australian to become the next CEO of Rio Tinto. Do you think that will happen? And if so, who do you want to see fill that spot?
Well, I think it should. 75% of Rio Tinto's profits come out of Australia, and most of those out of the Pilbara region in WA. We haven't got a name yet, but we need to do a forensic investigation of getting the right person in the right job so they can value our Indigenous heritage here in Australia.
One of Australia's most prominent and respected Aboriginal politicians, Ben Wyatt, spoke to ABC Radio, and he said, and I quote here, "I think the conversations I've had with board members of Rio suggested to me that they never really understood until perhaps the last 48 hours the level of discontent they had caused." From meeting with members of Rio Tinto, is that your sense and belief as well?
Well, it's unfortunately wouldn't be the first time this type of behaviour has happened. It's something that happens in Australia on a regular basis. It's ancient culture, it's ancient history, and ancient sites are blown up on a weekly, if not daily, basis here in Australia. So this is the reason why we need law reform. People don't get it, and not only do companies not get it, government doesn't get it either.
Fascinating. Look, while I've got you, I do want to talk about the coronavirus pandemic, because clearly it's a blight on so many parts of the world, everywhere. In fact, many Aboriginal communities in remote areas of Australia, I know, are locked down. They've been locked down, or certainly when the coronavirus pandemic began. It is in part one of the reasons why states like Western Australia are not opening their state borders to protect such communities, we're told. Those in remote areas often have higher rates of health issues due to access to healthcare, and are therefore more vulnerable, of course, to the virus. Are these communities getting enough support during this pandemic?
Our communities never had enough support, so that's one thing. I don't think they're getting enough support through the pandemic. Not only is it a health issue, it's also a nutrition issue. getting food and, you know, supplies out to these communities can sometimes present difficulties. So I think the governments need to do more and, you know, but we have been doing well in protecting these communities with the low numbers of COVID in these communities.
All right. Well, it's good to have you on, and we look forward to speaking to you again as we continue to report on the sort of work that you are doing in pressing the Australian government for a change in the laws on the issues that we have been discussing at the top of this interview. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Up next.
Yes.
The rhythm of the pandemic's new normal. Despite what you see here, COVID is silencing many of Mexico's traditional mariachi bands. CNN talks to an artist about facing what is a very shaky future.